I used to think it was normal, that every child felt like a servant, that every decision, every breath, every movement you made had to orbit around one person's moods, one person's needs, one person's control. My name is Aaron. I'm 28 now, and I just recently realized that I was never really raised. I was managed, groomed, trained from birth to meet someone else's expectations like a dam project. That someone was my mother. She wasn't a monster, not in the way most people think of monsters. She didn't hit me. She didn't scream in public. She was always polite when the neighbors were around, smiled for photos, brought cupcakes to the school bake sale. But behind closed doors, I wasn't a son. I was an accessory, a tool, a reflection of the life she thought she deserved. My father left when I was 2. I don't even remember him. The only thing I know is what she told me, and she told me everything. He was weak, she'd say. He couldn't handle responsibility. But you're not like him. You're stronger, smarter. You'll never abandon me like that. I didn't understand what she meant at the time, but I felt the weight of it. Even at 5 years old, I was being handed a debt that wasn't mine, and I carried it. I wasn't allowed to say no, not to her. If she wanted something, it was my job to deliver. If she was sad, I had to be the clown. If she was angry, I had to be the punching bag. Emotionally, of course. Guilt was her favorite weapon. She could turn a simple request into a loaded emotional trap. "Can you go to the store for me?" she'd ask. And if I hesitated, "It's okay, I'll just starve, I guess. I'm sure you're too busy to care." I was 11 the first time I canceled plans with my only friend to take care of her because she claimed her back was going out again and no one else would help her move a shelf. Spoiler, there was nothing wrong with her back. She just didn't want me out of the house. Birthdays were the worst. Not hers, mine. On my 13th birthday, I asked if I could have a few friends over. She said yes, but spent the entire day crying in her room about how I didn't love her anymore. How she wasn't enough. So I sat on the stairs and called each friend to cancel. I told them I was sick. Then I baked my own cake and watched TV in silence while she watched from the hallway to make sure I looked properly sad. High school was just more of the same, but with more advanced manipulation. She'd snoop through my texts and emails, pretend to be supportive of any interest I had just long enough to gain control over it, then tear it apart. I once got into a college summer program across the country, fully paid scholarship. She cried for 2 days straight, saying I was trying to escape her like your father did. I declined the offer. My teacher called me brave for staying with family. If only he knew. By the time I hit 18, I had no life skills except how to keep my mother from spiraling. I didn't know how to budget, didn't know how to drive. She'd refused to let me learn because, what if something happens and I need you and you're gone? I didn't even know how to hold a conversation without constantly second-guessing myself. Every thought I had was filtered through a lens of, will this upset her? It wasn't love. It was psychological servitude. When people talk about emotional incest, it sounds too extreme, but that's what it was. She never touched me inappropriately, no. But she leaned on me like a partner. Shared things no child should have to process. Made me feel like her emotional caretaker. If she was broke, it was my fault. If she was tired, I should have done more. If she was lonely, it meant I wasn't being a good enough son. I wasn't allowed to date either. She always had something awful to say about any girl who showed interest. She just wants to use you. She's going to hurt you like your father hurt me. You're all I have, Aaron. Don't forget that. And I never did forget. That was the problem. I moved out when I was 24. Not because I was ready, but because my therapist practically begged me to. Yes, I finally got a therapist. It took a full-blown panic attack at work for me to even consider it. I collapsed in the middle of a Tuesday morning meeting. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. They called an ambulance. The ER doctor said my heart was fine, but my mind was screaming. That was my wake-up call. When I told my mother I was moving out, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She got quiet. Like dead quiet. She didn't speak to me for 3 full days. Just walked past me like a ghost in our own home. On the 4th day, she sat at the kitchen table and said, if you leave this house, don't bother coming back when everything falls apart. Don't expect me to clean up your mess. I nodded and said nothing. I knew if I tried to reason with her, she'd twist it into another guilt trip. So I packed. Slowly. One bag at a time. And every night, I kept the door locked. Because deep down, I didn't trust her to let me go without making one last scene. But here's the thing they don't tell you about leaving an emotional manipulator. You might physically escape, but the programming stays with you. I spent my first 3 months in my tiny apartment pacing the floor at night, checking my phone constantly, convinced I'd get a call that she was in the hospital or dead. Every time I didn't text her back, I felt sick. Like I committed a crime. I had to unlearn how to live. Like a prisoner learning how to walk again after being chained up too long. Eventually, therapy helped. My therapist, God bless her, was the first person to ever say, "Aaron, your mother emotionally abused you." I cried. Not because it hurt, but because someone finally said it out loud. Someone believed me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was a kid who had been forced to carry the emotional weight of an adult for too damn long. For a while, I went low contact. Not no contact because I wasn't ready for that. I'd answer maybe once a week, always brief, always polite. But she noticed. Oh, she noticed. "You're too busy for your own mother now?" She'd text. "Funny how fast you forget the woman who gave you everything." She never mentioned the times I missed school because she needed help filling out paperwork. Never mentioned how I once skipped finals to take her to the DMV because she said she couldn't function alone. That part was always invisible. Then came the money requests. First, it was small. "The electric bill is tight this month. Can you help?" Then it became routine. $100 here. $200 there. "I'm your mother, Aaron. I gave you life. The least you can do is help when I ask." One time I said no just once and she didn't speak to me for a full 2 weeks. Just silence. Like I was a stranger. That silence hurt more than any words she could have said. But here's the part one never told anyone. One day I visited her unannounced. She didn't know I was coming. I had a bad feeling, call it intuition. Her neighborhood wasn't the safest and I hadn't heard from her in 3 days. I knocked. No answer. I let myself in. What I saw still haunts me. She was fine, alive, but her living room looked like a shrine. Photos of me from every age lined the shelves. Birthday cards I'd written her taped to the wall. A quilt she'd made from old shirts I'd outgrown. And in the center of the room? A giant canvas she'd painted of the two of us, except in the painting, I was still a child. It was like she'd frozen me in time. Refused to let me grow up. I realized in that moment she didn't love me as a person. She loved me as an extension of herself. The version of me that never left. The one who stayed home forever and never said no. I left without waking her. Didn't say a word. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how much of my life had I lived for her, and how much of it was actually mine. After that visit, something in me cracked, not loudly, not violently, but slowly, like a fault line shifting under pressure for years. I didn't explode. I didn't scream or break anything. I just stopped answering. No texts. No calls. I watched my phone light up for weeks with her usual guilt-laced messages. "I don't know what I did wrong, but clearly you don't care anymore. This is how you repay a mother who sacrificed everything?" Then, finally, I raised a selfish, heartless child. "You're just like your father." That last message made me pause. Not because it hurt, but because I realized I no longer feared the comparison. Maybe I was like my father. Maybe he wasn't weak for leaving. Maybe he was just trying to survive. Maybe walking away wasn't cowardice, it was clarity. A chance to escape the emotional quicksand I'd grown up in. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just wanted air. Space. Silence. My own voice, for once. During those weeks of silence, I started doing things I'd never done before. I went out with coworkers. Took a weekend trip to the coast alone. Sat in a diner with a journal and wrote down things I liked, not what she liked, not what I thought I was supposed to like, just me. I realized I'd never picked my own clothes without hearing her voice in my head. Never even set up furniture without imagining her disapproval. I was 25 and didn't know what my favorite color was. But little by little, I started learning. I picked up painting not because I was good at it, but because it made me feel calm. I started therapy twice a week. My therapist gave me homework, write down 5 things I did for myself each day. At first, it was hard. I'd write, "I made breakfast," or "I went for a walk." But after a while, it turned into, "I told someone no without apologizing." I said something without second-guessing it. I looked in the mirror and didn't feel guilty. Then came the letter. A thick envelope, handwritten in her elegant, looping script. I opened it slowly, not sure what I was expecting. Apology? Threats? Some manipulative masterpiece? but inside were 6 pages of everything I'd feared and predicted. It started kind. I miss you. You were my whole world. But by page 2 it turned. You've changed. You've become cold, distant. Therapy has poisoned you against me. And then the real dagger. I don't know who you are anymore, and honestly, I wish I hadn't wasted my life on someone who clearly didn't want to be a son. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer. Didn't rip it up. Didn't reply. Just put it away like an old receipt for something I no longer owned. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, lights off, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge. It was the first time I didn't feel like I was about to be summoned or scolded. And in that silence, I made a decision. I would not go back. The next day, I changed my phone number, blocked her on social media, called the utility companies she still listed me as an emergency contact for, and removed myself. It wasn't dramatic. It was necessary. The kind of surgery that doesn't bleed but still saves your life. And for the first time since I was a child, I exhaled without fear. That's when the nightmares started. Not the kind with monsters or chases, but the kind where I was back in her house, trapped, where every hallway led back to her kitchen, where no matter what door I opened, she was there, asking, "Why are you doing this to me?" I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, gripping the sheets like they were my lifeline. But I stayed the course, kept going to therapy, kept showing up for myself. Because healing isn't clean or fast. It's messy. It's relapsing and restarting and still choosing not to go back. It had been over a year of silence when I got the message. Not a call, not a letter. A simple email with the subject line, "We need to talk." For a second, I felt that old pressure rise in my chest. The instinct to respond, to brace for drama, to fix whatever she was about to unleash. But I didn't open it right away. I stared at it. Then I got up, made coffee, folded laundry, and took a walk around the block. When I came back, I clicked. Inside was a short message. "Hi, Aaron. I know you've been busy with your new life. I've been sick. It's getting worse. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to see you. Maybe you'll understand me better now that you're older." It was classic her. Just vague enough to trigger concern. Just emotional enough to imply guilt if I didn't respond. No details. No apology. No responsibility. Just a hook baited with pity. And for a real second, I almost replied. But then I remembered the letter. The silence. The fact that I'd built myself from rubble alone. That I'd taught myself to breathe without her hand around my neck. I closed the email and flagged it for review later. That alone was growth. Later that week, I brought it up in therapy. My therapist asked, "What do you want from her, if anything?" And that question stunned me. Because for the first time, I realized the answer might be nothing. I didn't want a relationship. I didn't want closure. I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted peace. But peace doesn't come from confronting the past and hoping it changes. It comes from accepting that it won't and still choosing to move forward. So I didn't reply. Again. That silence lasted another 4 months. Then the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was familiar. I let it go to voicemail. A woman's voice. Soft. Hesitant. "Hi, this is Clara. I'm your mom's neighbor. She asked me to call you. She's in the hospital. Said you were her emergency contact. I'm sorry if this is a surprise." She still had me listed. I sat there for a long time staring at the screen. I didn't delete the message. I didn't call back either. Instead, I opened a notebook I kept by my desk and wrote one sentence: "You are not responsible for the healing of the person who broke you." Then I got in the car and drove to the beach. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Didn't pack much. Just a weekend bag and my journal. I walked along the shoreline until the sun dipped below the horizon. And there, with the cold water brushing my ankles, I whispered to myself, "You don't owe her your life just because she gave you birth." That was the night I finally let go. I came home on Sunday, checked the voicemail again, and found no follow-up. No second call. No desperate messages. And that was her final move, leave the door open just enough so I think I was being cruel if I walked away. But I'd walked away already. That door didn't exist anymore. I had sealed it with years of pain, therapy, and truth. A few months passed. Then one day a letter arrived. Handwritten again. Same looping script. But this one was shorter. Just 1 page. "I don't know what else to say. You've made your choice. I hope you find happiness, even if it doesn't include me. Goodbye." No warmth. No understanding. just finality. And weirdly, I appreciated that, because it meant I didn't have to wait anymore. The waiting was over. Life didn't get easier after that. Not magically, not overnight, but it did get real. And real, I've learned, is better than easy. I stopped checking old emails, stopped revisiting voicemails. I moved apartments not because I had to, but because I wanted to choose something that was completely mine. Every piece of furniture, every fork, every curtain, nothing in it came from my childhood. Nothing came with strings. I found myself sleeping better. Not just longer, but deeper. No more waking up in a panic, heart racing. No more dreams where I was stuck in that house, reliving the same guilt loops. I started going on dates again cautiously but honestly. I told people from the start, I grew up with an emotionally manipulative parent. I'm learning boundaries. I'm learning to take up space. If that scares you, I get it. But I'm not hiding it anymore. And the wildest thing? People respected it. Turns out vulnerability doesn't repel healthy people, it attracts them. I made new friends. Some knew the whole story, some didn't. But I felt seen. Not as a version of myself designed to meet someone else's expectations. Just Aaron. Messy, recovering, awkward Aaron. And that was enough. One day, I met someone who asked me a simple question that knocked the wind out of me. She said, "What do you want your life to look like in 10 years? And I froze, because I'd never let myself imagine it before. My life had always been a reaction to hers. Her moods, her needs, her fears. I never got to have dreams that were just mine. So I sat down and I made a list. It wasn't long, but it was honest. I want to live somewhere quiet with space for a dog. I want to write a book. I want to be someone who can help others break their own cycles. I want to be loved without having to earn it through sacrifice. That list lives in my wallet now. Every time I feel myself slipping into the old patterns, apologizing for existing, over-explaining, checking in with people who haven't checked on me, I pull it out and read it. It reminds me that I'm not her son anymore. Not in the way she defined it. I'm my own person. I still get updates about her from time to time, through mutual acquaintances. I don't ask for them, they just arrive. She's not doing well, they say. She's bitter. She tells people I abandoned her, that I was brainwashed by therapists and fake friends, that I forgot who raised me. But I didn't forget. I remember everything. I remember how she weaponized her sadness, how she made me afraid to leave a room, how she taught me love was something you earn through obedience. I remember how many birthdays I spent alone, how many girlfriends she chased off, how many dreams she quietly crushed under the guise of protection. And I also remember the moment I stopped letting her define me. That's what keeps me moving. I've built a quiet, beautiful life. It's not flashy. It's not perfect, but it's mine. And sometimes that's all the victory you need, to simply exist on your own terms. I wrote this not for pity, or anger, or validation. I wrote it for the person reading this who still feels like a shadow in their own home, who's scared to speak up or walk away or even wants something different. You're not selfish. You're not broken. You're not wrong for wanting peace. Some people will never apologize. Some people will never see what they did. But that doesn't mean your healing depends on them. You can walk away and still wish them well. You can let go without becoming heartless. You can love yourself more than the version of you that was built to survive them. And if no one else has told you this yet, let me be the first. You are not here to serve someone else's life. You are here to live your own.